Hey, man, StreamYard is on the ball. A couple of weeks ago, I would hit the go live button and it would take like a minute. Now I barely get my finger off the button and we're already live. So, hey, it's Brent Leary. Another few good minutes, the first few good minutes of this week. I'm really looking forward to this. But before I bring my guests on, because this is kind of like a continuation or a revisiting something that we did at the beginning or end of last year, and we're getting an update to see where things stand and progress. Because I was just really interested in this whole concept, and I'm not going to tell you what it is until I'm ready to tell you what it is. But before we do that, I have some housekeeping. Man, I used to say house cleaning, and people used to get on me. I think you got it right now. Got some housekeeping items before we bring in our guests. So let's see. I got it queued up. Yeah, I think I got it queued up. Tomorrow is going to be a really interesting episode of Watching Privacy, which I do with my buddies Tejas Gadja and Raju Vagesna. And so I partnered with Zoho on an AI and data privacy study, and it just got kind of launched today. There's a press release and all that went out. And so tomorrow we're going to do a show where we're going to talk about some of the results, talk about why we did the study, what we're hoping to find out, some of the big takeaways, maybe some interesting discussion points, and having even some outside perspective. We're going to bring in John Reed, who is one of the co-founders over at Diginomica, to get his perspective on some of the findings. Then we'll have a discussion, and hopefully we'll have some of you out there putting in some comments and some questions, and we can bring you into the conversation as well. So that's tomorrow at 1 p.m. AI and data privacy, the survey says. Hopefully you'll get a chance to check out some of the findings and add your voice to that. So that's tomorrow. And then Friday, it's almost sort of like a part two of this, because I do a show for Small Business Trends, and I host what we call the Small Business Breakdown. So I bring a group of small business experts, and we're going to ask them to get their kind of their take on the results of the study, what they think of the study, maybe some of the things that surprised them, maybe some of the things that didn't surprise them. Just a really big group discussion targeted more towards the SMBs and what they think about AI. Do they really like it? Do they really think a lot about data privacy? So we're going to get into the discussion with the kind of the SMB folks to talk about that. And then last but certainly not least, Tuesday, we are for the second time working with CRM Magazine. And when I say we, I mean, PPN, Players Production Networks, and CRM Players. So Tuesday, CRM Magazine is announcing this year's CRM Magazine Industry Award winners. And they are actually going to do that on a special CRM Players show. So Tuesday, 3 p.m., we're going to have the editor and the publisher of CRM Magazine join Paul Greenberg, or I should say the venerable Paul Greenberg. And we're going to go down the list of winners. And we are going to be the first place where you can see who wins. And I think there's like 11 different categories. And so Bob Fernikes and Lynn Klee from CRM Magazine are going to join Paul and I, and we're going to walk through the winners of each category and maybe a little commentary, but we're going to try to get through this in like an hour. And we have 11 categories and a lot of winners. We might not have a lot of time to do some individual discussions, but we're going to try to fit some of that stuff in. So once again, Tuesday, this is right after Labor Day, Tuesday, 3 p.m. Eastern. Join us to see who wins what. And I'm telling you, there's a lot of categories and there's a lot of winners, and you're going to want to know who won what before anybody else knows. All right. I think I'm done with all the housekeeping. Man, I'm on a roll. I got it right. Okay. So at the end of last year, or I think it was actually the beginning of this year, but it was based off of something I saw last year. I went to Verint's Analyst Day event in Scottsdale, Arizona. I think it was November. Talk about a perfect time to go to an event in Arizona. It was great. It was beautiful. It was great. But the information and the day and a half spent, learned a lot about what's going on, what Verint is doing, what they kind of think about AI and generative AI and where it fits in some of the things that they're already doing. And one particular concept, or I think phrase, came up that really interested me. And it actually came up when I was having like a side conversation with Dan Bodner, who was the CEO and founder of Verint. And we were just talking, and he said something. Yeah, we're doing this thing, this FlexBot thing. Just think about Uber, what Uber did for the whole ride sharing industry. And I was like, so this is like Uberizing the contact center and something like that. I don't know if it's stuck for him, but it's stuck for me. so I've been kind of using that term. And so I immediately wanted to do a follow-up conversation after that event. And so luckily I was able to coax Captain America basically to come in and kind of give me a little deeper dive. When I say Captain America, I mean Dave Singer. And matter of fact, let me just show you what I'm talking about here, because I have to admit, I think this might have been my favorite thumbnail picture that I created all year for a few good minutes. Although it looks like I don't know if he's pointing down or if he's getting ready to punch me or something. But such a great picture. So Captain America, David Singer, who's also in his spare time, he's the group vice president and go-to-market strategy for Verint. We had this really great conversation. So he filled me in on exactly what they're doing with their time flex bot and how that is helping kind of orchestrate this whole idea of the Uberization of the contact center. And just so that you get a better understanding of what that means, I'm going to play this short clip from our conversation, and then I'm going to bring Dave out, and then he's going to help me introduce somebody who's an actual time flex expert. So before we do that, check out what Dave had to say about what time flex is all about and Uberization of the contact center is kind of all about.
Uber drivers decide, when do I want to work? When don't I want to work? And part of what that is controlled is, how much money am I going to make? There's surge pricing, there's regular pricing, all that stuff wrapped around. And then you look in a contact center, there's amount of work to be done. There's calls coming in, there's chats coming in. We need people to handle that. But for people, life happens. Kid gets sick. Hey, my spouse is on a business trip, so I might as well work an extra 12 hours this week, because what else am I going to do? Over a reasonable number of people, there's always somebody who wants to work any given shift, right? There's always somebody who, this is good for me, this is not so good. It's always possible to balance the needs of the organization with the needs of the employees. Or the time flex lets us do is give agents control over that with sort of a market dynamics construct. So you can say, hey, we've got a call spike this afternoon, but I really want to leave a half hour early to see my son's performance in his school play. I have like these flex coins. That's going to cost me like 50 flex coins because it's a really bad time for the business. But conversely, tomorrow morning, we're forecasting a real lull. We don't need as many people as we schedule. I can earn 50 coins by offering to not work that time. So you can sort of trade off. I want to work here. I don't want to work there.
All right. So that's kind of like a good foundation for what I'm calling the revisiting the Uberization of the contact center. And who else would I do this revisitation with than the guy that I first visited with, which is really an awkward way of saying, hey, Dave, thanks for coming back, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, Brent. And I wish I'd seen the clip. I wouldn't have worn another black shirt if I noticed that's what I was wearing last time as well. Apparently, it's becoming a uniform at this point. I got to.
Hey, you got the shield in the back still, so I mean, everything is good, looking good, man. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for taking time.
Always.
And I've really been interested in following this up, because it was, I mean, when I first heard about it from Dan about, I guess almost a year ago at Engage, the analyst event, I was like, man, that is such a cool concept. And then we had this really great conversation. And I know it was still early days at that point. Yeah. It was like at the end of the year, the beginning of this year. So I've definitely been meaning to circle back around. But before we get into all that, first, let me so how are things going so far this year? And I know we're going to be talking a little bit about an event that's coming up in about a month or so. So just maybe before we dive in, anything you want to get off your chest before we jump in? Is there, football or anything that we need to get out of the way before we get into this?
So it's, it's funny. The, as I said, I think the first time we met, you asked me, who's your favorite football team? I live in Indianapolis. So by law, I'm required to say it's the Colts, but, I'm Canadian, born and raised. So, my go-to team is always Maple Leafs. And we're
that's okay with me,
because going on what 70 years now, 60 years since we won the Cup. We'll get there. We'll get back.
Wow, that's kind of rough. I can't hate on that at all. Matter of fact, I kind of feel sorry, but hey,
but I'll say, you got to respect a town that you haven't won the cups in '67, sells out every game anyway. Those aren't fair weather fans.
Though they are certainly not fair weather fans. That's awesome. All right, so I mean, it's been a long 8-9 months, man, since we talked, and I know you're going to introduce somebody who could really get into the details of this, but just at the high level, how has things gone with kind of the way that people are taken to TimeFlex and starting to maybe put some of the things that we talked about in play, or some of the things that you've been talking about in that clip we just played?
Yeah. So I'm gonna pull sort of literally a step and a half back from TimeFlex because again in the clip we're talking about uses of AI in the contact center.
Yeah.
And one of the things I love about TimeFlex is it's a proof point for not all AI is Gen AI, right? It's become such a big thing in the last couple of years that people say AI, think GPT models and LLMs, and awesome. They serve a great class of problems really, really well. They're incredibly valuable. We love them as well. But there are classes of problems that are not solved by LLMs, and scheduling is one of them. Flexibility is one of them. LLMs don't do math well, right? That's so the way Verint built our whole platform, all our offerings, is around that DaVinci AI construct, which makes it really easy for us to say, okay, you need an LLM to solve this problem. Great. You need proprietary AI to do this kind of scheduling Uberization. Fantastic. And it's easy for our employees, well, them too.
For your customer. Well, let me ask you about that. So I'm glad that you back things up, because sometimes I take things for granted. I've been to like 28 conferences already this year, and nothing else but AI is being talked about. So, so how in the last 8 or 9 months, how far has the knowledge of not just Gen AI but AI, how far has it come? Generally speaking, from your customers, that I'm guessing at the beginning of the year it was at one level, and I'm hoping towards the end of the year it's at another level here.
Right. So it's going insanely well, Brent. I got to say, when we look at our when our customers are buying from us, the vast majority, I can't give numbers yet. We're still in that period, but the vast majority of our deals include more than one bot. And bots, remember, how we encapsulate AI. So it's not AI in the lab, it's AI in the workflow delivering outcomes. And the vast majority of what our customers are buying include, at least 1 or 2 bots driving that. So the use of AI by customers is growing really, really fast. So yeah, it's going well.
Yeah.
This one is, I love that you call me back to talk about this, and then I get to bring, keep them secret for a minute, we come out to talk some more about it.
Well, before we bring him out, I do remember a couple of different things. I think it was at the actual Engage conference in June, and then it kind of continued on to the analyst event in November. Like, I think in June you had like 12 or 13 bots, but by the time that we got to November, it was like 30 or something. And then I think the projection was going to be like 100 by the end of this year or something like that. So where do things stand with that?
So yeah, we're at 30, then it was 40, then the slides say 50 plus, and we're kind of sticking with like 50 to 100 now. So we're up around 100 bots. It got so many that now we have you buy bots by the team, because it's really good for our customers that we have this many bots driving value for their business. But I don't want my customers to think about, which 19 of the 100 do I have to pick to get? So we'll say, when we look at our data insight bot, for example, that's really a team of 15 bots. Mm-hmm. And those 15 bots do different kind of modeling, different kind of prediction, different kinds of AI, right? Talk about our real-time coaching bots and our assistant bots, because it's all about the agent today, right? There's, I think, 7 bots now as part of the Verint coaching bot, because it solves for different problems for the agent. So yeah, we're again up around 100, but it's getting easier and easier to purchase because they're coming together as these sort of bot families that solve for broader problems.
Yeah. So does it make sense to bring in the TimeFlex bot expert at this point to kind of dig into that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was trying to think of a great alliterative way to introduce him because, superheroes always have alliterative names. We all know that.
Hey, I gave him a nickname,
Yeah,
feel free
I was
to
going to
use
say the best I could do is the maestro of workforce management. So at least there's two M's in there somewhere, right? So
Nice.
James is going to come in. He's the lead for Verint on this product. He's both driving strategy from a product perspective. He's out with our field sales all the time, showing how it works, and he's working with our customers to drive success. So I can't think of anyone better to bring on. Thanks for indulging me to talk about how it's going and what are our customers doing, and as opposed to Verint's theory about what we think. What are our customers saying? What are we actually doing for them?
All right. And the James he spoke of is, I want to make sure I get this right. Is it James McManamey?
McManamey, pretty close.
McManamey.
That James. Is an above average effort.
I'm just sticking to Maestro at this point. So, so first of all, James, thanks for joining us, man. I really appreciate you taking time to do it.
Absolutely. Thanks for the invite.
So before we dig in, maybe because I'm just meeting you, maybe you could just tell us a little bit about your background and what you're doing specifically at Verint.
Yeah, for sure. So my background is really in digital products. So kind of building platforms and digital solutions, and have been doing that for 15 years or now. And then kind of got involved in contact centers about 6 years ago, really focused on the agent experience. That's really where I've been focused for a long period of time. And to Dave's point, my kind of whole world at the moment is TimeFlex. Everything from kind of product strategy to really working with customers to help them, understand the opportunity and the problems that we're addressing, and then also how to get the most out of the product. So once they've purchased it, how do you, roll it out to your teams, and how do you make sure that you get kind of all of the benefits that we believe exist in this kind of employee empowerment, Uberization model for the contact center.
And just so people know, they might be tempted to think that you're a native of my neck of the woods, Atlanta, Georgia, but he's really not. He's from Australia, so there's a little difference there.
We can put subtitles along the bottom if we need to.
That's right. So you heard the clip from the conversation that Dave and I had. I think it was late last year, early this year. And I think that was kind of towards the beginning of the TimeFlex kind of journey.
Yeah, that was pretty early on.
Yeah. So maybe at a high level, where do things stand after the 9 months from the last time I had this conversation?
Yeah. So, enormous progress. We've got hundreds and hundreds of agents making thousands of schedule changes a month right now. So we're seeing huge volumes across industries. So we have customers in government services, telcos, retail, insurance. So it really is kind of a broad appeal across industry.
So what are some of the early feedback that you're getting from the customers who've had a lot of at least a certain amount of time to actually dig in and play with this?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's kind of two sides to this. The one that I personally get really excited about is, what do we hear from agents? So, this is, and I think that's something that we sometimes overlook, right? When we're selling software into big enterprises, we sometimes forget that at the end of the day, there are thousands of people using the products. So we spend a lot of time, during and post implementation, actually talking to agents. So really understanding from the agent's perspective, what are they getting out of the product? And that's where I get really excited. So we sit down and we talk to agents, and we hear all sorts of really interesting stories about what they've been able to use TimeFlex to achieve. So the kind of the expected stories about, I was able to move my schedules around to take care of my kid who was sick, or attend the dentist, or pick my parents up from the airport, through to things you would not immediately think of around, I needed to, I was able to finish my shifts slightly earlier so I could make it to my car while the sun was still up. Like those types of things that can have very significant impacts to an agent that you may never think about. So we hear a lot of those types of stories, and people talking about being able to go from part-time to full-time, because they now have the flexibility to, find that balance between their work and life. We've spoken to agents who were able to go back to school. Now they had the flexibility to move their shifts around. They were actually able to re-enroll in college and take care of those types of things. So we hear all of these really, impactful stories from the agent perspective. And then I think that what we then see is how that rolls up to the business performance. So we're delivering all of this flexibility to agents. They're able to autonomously manage their schedules and find that work-life balance. And then we see all of that playing out when our customers start to look at their attrition rates, their absenteeism rates, their employee engagement scores. You kind of see that natural flow on from, we're treating our agents like adults. We're giving them this autonomy, we're giving them this flexibility, and what do you know? They stick around longer, they turn up, and they're happier. I mean, who would have guessed? And that's what we're seeing, and it's just exceptionally exciting to kind of be talking to customers about this stuff.
What about?
Sorry, Brad. One thing I want to just underline that you said there, James, I found amazing when I started talking to customers after we'd gone in is, you think about, work-life balance now, it's easier to keep your job, you stay, but it changes people's lives.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of time selling contact center software that you're fundamentally making people's lives better, right? The fact that people can take care of their families, the fact that people can go back to school, the fact that people can feel safe, getting to and from work because they can balance around the time of day. I mean, it's really amazing to be able to have that impact on people's lives, not just work, it's their entire life gets better. I think it's just incredible. You don't get a chance to do that very often.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Talk a little bit about, you started going down the line of kind of how it's impacting their work. How, if you have any kind of data or quantitation on some of this stuff, how about the customer experience? How has that changed?
Yeah. So I think that's kind of part of the I guess the myth that we've had to kind of push back on a little bit, in that I think traditionally from a kind of planner perspective, there's been this idea that, if we give flexibility and control to our people, that's going to negatively impact our customers. And what we've been able to do through the kind of time flex economic model is, to Dave's earlier point, allow agents to find that balance. So as they're making those changes and getting that flexibility, they're doing it in a way that maintains the value that they're delivering overall to customers. So they may take, some changes that are less helpful for the business, but they're making more changes that are helpful to the business. Right. And I think that, when you look at how that plays out over hundreds and thousands of changes, we've worked with customers to kind of measure the impact, and they tend to look at something called schedule efficiency. So, how closely are we scheduling our people to where we need them? And we've actually seen, an uptick in schedule efficiency after TimeFlex has gone live. Yeah. And I think that is, it's a bit of a counterintuitive finding, but when you think about what people are doing, they're making the kind of micro adjustments that the businesses aren't able to make. Because they're forced to schedule people in 7.5 hour blocks over 5 days and all of these things. When we flip the model and we give the power to the agents, they get really creative. They're finding little opportunities to add value to the business all over the place. They're moving micro increments around, and the net effect of that is a slight improvement to schedule efficiency.
How I'm guessing you I think you said hundreds of people, or at least hundreds are using this, trying this out. Probably more than that, right?
Thousands.
Yeah. So what are the things that potentially get the customers and companies hung up before they actually try this out? Are there certain things you have to convince them is not the case, like the customer experience when you just talked about? Well, are there any other things that you've seen that have made companies a little more apprehensive about really stepping full-throated into this?
Yeah,
so I say, James, let me jump on that one, because I usually get the objections that I bring you to handle them. So we'll play that game here, right? Is you know, when I bring this up, usually the first one is we can't deal with that chaos. Right? We spend a lot of time building our shift models and doing shift bids and all this stuff, and they're used to a real command and control model of workforce management. And there's this almost like lizard brain fear of the chaos that'll happen and the problems that'll happen if people can just make unlimited changes, and they get hung up on unlimited change and not the AI that ensures the changes are forcing like a curve smoothing to a better schedule. So you know, with that, you know, that's the number one fear I hear that comes up. So you know, James, back to you if you hear anything else, and then again the best answer for that, because you're the maestro.
No, that is the primary objection and I think some of that is almost cultural. I think within kind of workforce planning as a practice, you know, we traditionally measure them on, you know, control. You know, how efficiently are you creating your schedules and passing them down from the top? So this idea of, you know, inverting the model and giving some of the power back to the agents, you know, it can be conceptually challenging for people to get their heads around. And I think you know, the way we talk about it is to really point to reference customer. I love that comment.
That's
like, trust people. That is an enlightened comment.
Yeah.
And I think we point to kind of case studies and reference customers. We have, you know, almost a 100% conversion rate from customers that actually trial it to then committing to it and rolling it out over long periods of time. So we're very confident, you know, in how we protect the customer experience with TimeFlex.
What are the drivers that would get the companies to take the lead? I'm guessing the kind of the usual driver is some form of cost reduction. That's traditionally how people go into some of these new technologies. But it seems to me like some of the bigger positives around this are the things that you said early on, James, around how employees feel more empowered, they feel more trusted, and they are allowed to make the job work for them as much as, you know, working for the job. But where does that fit into because I'm sure there's the conversation is, well, what is this going to cost us, and how long is it going to be before we see ROI, and the kind of the concrete kind of things that come up. So how do you handle that, or is there a way to handle that best?
No, there very much is, and I think one follows the other, and that's really the story we tell. Is, you know, we're going to provide all of this flexibility and benefit to your agents, and we've shown, you know, time and time again that then results in significant improvements to absenteeism and attrition. So, you know, as an example, the last customer we looked at, they saw a 24% reduction in absenteeism, which is enormous for an industry that looks at absenteeism consistently. To be able to do something that within 3 months reduced it by 24%. At their scale, that was several $1 million
in 3 months. Wow.
In 3 months, and that's the thing, because, you know, because we are we're touching a direct driver of a lot of absenteeism and attrition. This is not kind of a bank shot where it's, you know, pizza parties and people will feel better, so therefore maybe they'll stay, rah, rah, rah. This is touching a kind of direct driver of a lot of that. So to your point, it really is selling in on, you know, cost out around, we can reduce your attrition and we can reduce your absenteeism. You can put hard dollars against that. And you also get to then, you know, deliver this value to your people. So you can tick all the boxes around kind of people and culture and talent acquisition and all of the softer benefits that accrue from, you know, trusting your people and empowering them with flexibility.
I'm going to go to two of these questions. Oh, go ahead, Dave.
I would say one more thing on that, because James blew by the 3 months really fast. One of the things that, again, that you know, that benefit in 3 months, and part of that, you know, the problem with getting benefit from all software is change management and adoption, right? There's all these cycles. This is super simple.
right? You give the model a couple of parameters, like this is sort of the broad strokes of what we want to do. You give it to the agents, 20 minutes of overview of the interface, and it's live. So, adoption is really high, really fast, because there's not a lot of change management and training and change of policy and process. No, you put this in, give them the interface, and now they can start adjusting their schedule. And it's completely seamlessly integrated to the back-end workforce management, and everything's propagated immediately. So from the time you install it to the time people start seeing benefit is days, right? So that's where we get this really, really high ROI really fast, is because it's super simple to get in the hands of people to drive what they need right away. Sorry, Brent, I cut you off. I just think that's...
Hey, man, when Captain America wants to talk and the Maestro wants to talk, they talk. But I'm going to get them to answer a couple of questions from my buddy Alan Berkson, who is I think we call him the Chief Narrative Officer for PPN. Don't ask me exactly what that means, but it sounds good. All right, so he has 2 questions, and I actually like them both. Don't you have to think about hiring staffing differently? And I would say, do your customers have to think about that before they go into this? Do you have to train them to think about it differently before they get going with this? And then the other one is you might have spoke a little bit about this, but are there some new metrics that come out of this? Because we've been having these really great conversations, kind of the analyst kind of crowd around the ROI of Gen AI, and I started just saying Gen ROI because I'm just getting tired of saying Gen AI and ROI. But there's a lot of discussion around that, and I think partially is because this Gen AI specifically is so new, and people still don't exactly know what to make of it and how to use it, that there are probably going to be some new meaningful metrics that come out that give you a much better understanding of where you are in this journey than maybe the traditional metrics that you still have to keep up with, but there may be some more. So are you starting to identify some new metrics that will help explain how this will impact customers who go down this line? And also talk about that hiring, staffing. Do they have to think about that differently before they even go down this line? Do you have to train them to kind of expand their horizon with this before they even take that step?
I think I'll take the hiring question first, because I think that's a really interesting one. So there's nothing that you need to do initially. So you can roll it out as is with the same hiring and staffing plan that you have today. What we've seen, though, is customers use TimeFlex to then change the type of agents they're recruiting. So they're then using TimeFlex as a benefit during talent acquisition to go and attract agents that they may not have been able to get in the past because they were unable to commit to rigid schedules. So it opens up the talent pool. You're able to get a broader range of agents who maybe require flexibility, whether that be because they've got kids at home or second jobs or other things. So I think that is part of it, is beginning to think about if we're opening up flexibility, does that make our contact center attractive to a new talent pool? The metric one is interesting. It's not something we've really thought about in terms of, if I understood it correctly, it's how well managed staff, their availability. So I think I'm going to have to think about that one. I don't know, Dave, if you've got an answer on this one, the availability one. It's a bit different.
I haven't thought about new metrics, but the metrics measure, like adherence and absenteeism, move radically in the right direction, right? Better adherence, less absenteeism, because the agents have the ability to, if I know I got to drop my son off at the same time every morning, well, instead of being 5 minutes late every day, I'm going to adjust my schedule and have that right time. So think about it. Are there different metrics that make more sense? Maybe it'd probably worth thinking about. Are there standard changes that people make all the time? How would you flow that back into like a scheduling model, so that while the agents have the flexibility, they don't have to use it all the time, because we can now predict what schedule they want and assign it to them.
So it's probably, I could probably think about a feedback loop on using the metrics of how much in common changes to feed an AI model to inform better initial scheduling. But right now, what we've seen is improvement in the existing metrics by the provision of that flexibility. And just to give an example of what James was saying on the hiring and staffing one, again, coming back to something James said before, because I always sound smarter when I repeat James.
He is the maestro. So.
Oh yeah, the maestro, the maestro of messaging. There
we go. Trademark.
There you go. Like you talked about agents who can now become full-time when they couldn't before because they have the flexibility to make that full-time schedule work. So you may have had companies who are going to more of a part-timer model because that was the only way to introduce the short shift flexibility they needed to cover what was going on. But maybe now they can shift back to, now they don't want as many part-timers, they have full-timers who adjust their schedules in the right flexible way. So it gives, the same way it gives flexibility to the agent to have the schedule they need, it gives flexibility to the employer to hire the kinds of employees they want with the hiring model they want because they can make the schedules work. So it really opens up that freedom in a number of dimensions.
All right, I'm going to throw this up here because Nicholas wants to piggyback off of Alan's question. He says he understands this is originally for call centers, but are you looking to expand who you offer this to?
It's definitely something we're looking at, is how could we take this same model and apply it, in our world, the next adjacency is really back office teams. So teams where they still have, work volumes and they have schedules. How do we take this same kind of economic balancing mechanism and apply it to those, workforces where the only real difference is that the workload is not real time. It's, queue based or task based.
Yeah. So I agree. As always, I got more to say. It's my superpower is opinions. What makes this work or wouldn't have X years ago is with virtual workers more, right? If you've got to physically come into a place to work, then 50-minute shifts don't make sense, right? So it's probably not a good fit for retail, right? You're not going to bounce in and out the same. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm thinking maybe I want a different break to go to the Sbarro and get a slice of pizza when it's not your time to do that. But again, it's sort of it's a little weird there with back office work. The blending of back to front office, right? Think about a mortgage application center, right? There's a lot of customer facing work done in the back office, right? Talking about the loan and the origination, all of that. So while it's not real time, you are being scheduled. When can you speak to customers? When are you taking calls? When are you making outbound calls? So, to James's point, I think the back office is a really valuable place for this, especially as, the walls between the front and back office become more and more permeable in places like loan originations, claims processing, where there's that huge amount of customer facing work that is real time.
We're coming close to the end here, but I started thinking it's been around 9 months since we talked. People are using it. Thousands of agents are using it. There's lots of data that has to be getting created and with your AI analyzing all that. So what are some of the things, some of the findings that maybe has been surprising after 9 months and after having all this data analyzed and crunched and AI run on it? Are there any surprising findings that you're finding here?
I think that there's kind of two that I personally find quite interesting. Like one is the sheer volume of changes that agents will make.
Wow.
So we talk to customers who were already very agent experience focused. They had shift swaps and shift bids, and they were doing kind of all of the things they could to enable flexibility. And they still reported a 10x increase in the number of agent initiated schedule changes. So it's not that we are kind of addressing this voiced need from agents. It's that there's this huge undercurrent of unvoiced, unmet need. So the agents are simply not asking for the changes they want. And I think that was fascinating to see, is once we give them the tool, there is just this huge, desire to change their schedules that was really not being met. And I think the other one is we kind of had assumed that a lot of the changes would be large. So I'm going to move my shifts in very dramatic ways. I'm going to, change my day off. I'm going to, make a small number of very large changes to my schedule. What we tend to see, though, is a large percentage of the changes are very small. It's people moving their shifts by 15 minutes, 30 minutes. It's I'm going to finish an hour earlier today and work an extra hour tomorrow. So they're very small changes that, we may not think of as highly valuable. But to Dave's point, we don't really know what's in an agent's head. We don't know what that 15-minute means to Brent next Tuesday. We don't have the capacity to see and understand that, but the agents do. So I think those are the two that I've personally found really interesting.
Yeah, I agree, and I'll add one more because again, coming at it like newer than you to this, James. I think some of the small changes, like things like, I just need 30 minutes off at the same time in the afternoon because that's when my kid gets home from school. I just want to get him in the door, get him a snack, get him parked in front of Blue's Clues or whatever, depending on pick your age of your kid, and then I can get back to work. Right, so it's not a massive thing, but it gives me just enough time to engage with my son, and then get them parked and then go back. So, but that's dramatically powerful to that work-life balance, which leads to the thing that you brought up at the beginning, but I'll reemphasize here. I was amazed, at the sheer emotional impact this has had. Like the stories we get from agents about the impact it's had on their lives and how much better things are. And like it's the, when we introduce it to pilot teams and our customers, people outside the pilot group see it and they're begging to get into the pilot group. They're begging for, it's so powerful. The emotional impact, the emotional impact on people's lives. That was amazing to me. I did not expect that kind of visceral response.
That's great. I love those kind of surprises where you're actually not only impacting their work life, but their life.
Yeah.
Which is really great. Whenever you're able to do that, I can see why the attrition rate would go down because of stuff like that. So it makes total sense. Last thing I'll ask you guys, well, maybe second last thing. A year from now, when we're having this conversation, what are we going to be talking about with this? Are we going to have more different kinds of companies using this? Are you guys going to dig deeper into how could this impact other aspects of the company? You already talked a little bit about the back office, but where are things going to go in a year's time with what you're doing with FlexSpot, how it kind of maybe interacts with other parts of the business? Because I can see this catching on. Who wouldn't want to be able to have more control over their time and the way they work and when they work, and have the impact it's having on this particular group, the agents. And other people in the business are going to be like, hey, come on, I could see this coming over here. And I can see like a year's time, some really, you had a year of learnings, but you can almost see, I don't know if it'll be exponential, but you can see significant learning on top of what has already taken place this year, going in directions maybe you don't even see right now, but I can see something going that's a little different.
So for me, I think it's I'd want to see it in a position where this is the default. If you're running a contact center, like this is the level of flexibility that we should be offering to agents. I'd like to see the conversation get to that point. So it's not, why are we doing this? It's why are you not doing this? Like we should be treating our agents with that kind of level of trust and autonomy. That's where I'd love to see us get to in the next year, is really that acceptance that, we need to get there for our people.
I agree, and I'd like to see the concept again. It sounds smart by talking like the maestro. Treating your agents like grown-ups. I think that needs to be and will become pervasive across more and more of the contact center work, right? As we prove that this gives them, doing the right thing for the agent in terms of schedule flexibility, does the right thing for the company and the right thing for the customer. And I think that philosophy extends to much more of their work. So I think that we'll see massive growth in the adoption of this kind of technology. I think, as James says, it'll start to become the default requirement for how we do things. And I think it's if the world's a good and true place, which I honestly believe it is most days, it will start to have a shift in how contact center agents are treated and how those careers grow over time by proving that treating them like grown-ups, giving them autonomy to do the right thing and manage their working life will be the right thing for them, for the customer, and for the company.
Dude, that is such a great tagline. We help you treat your agents like adults. I mean, that's really, because what else would agents want is to be treated like they are trustworthy professionals and give them the ability to handle their own schedule and know that it's going to work fine with everybody else, and the customer will still. I mean, I think that's just great. And I was going to ask one last question. I'm going to get Nicholas's question in because he's asking something that I'm sure you guys probably hear a lot. Could you elaborate on how you're bundling various bots into teams? Sure. Is it a set package or tailored case by case through a consultation? You guys handle that one.
Sure. So it's both, right? We're introducing more and more, packages or bundles of bots as we see what our customers buying, and as, hey, all of these are solving the same problem, so it makes sense to put them together. But they're also all, generally available to buy one by one. So maybe you don't want, in the Copilot space, maybe you don't want every piece of that. You just need 2 or 3 blobs. That's fine too. So, we're putting together set bundles based on customer demands and based on, how we see problems being solved. But there's always the ability to do one-by-one consultation and build custom packages for customers based on their need.
Awesome.
Which is a long way of saying, yes, Nicholas, both.
Yeah. And you take Venmo or Cash App or Thompson. All right, guys. So I know a little less than a month from now, there's a conference coming up. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about what's going to happen in about 3 weeks or something like that.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to seeing you in person again, Brent. I'm assuming you'll be there one more time.
Yes, sir.
Again, we're doing a lot to share with our customers the outcomes of it. It's all about customer stories, right? So the more we can share with our customers, what are the other customers doing? What benefits are they achieving? What momentum are they seeing go as they roll this out? I'll see that. And of course, we always have new stuff we're going to release, which I can't tell you about here. We got to keep some secret.
We're our friends, man. Come on.
We are, but I suspect there might be a couple of people listening in, Brent. But if you think about what we're doing with TimeFlex and the ability to engage and empower agents, more of that.
Awesome. And that's, I think, 23rd to the 25th September?
That sounds right, yeah.
All right. In Austin, Texas. So it may still be pretty hot in Austin that time of year. So I'm looking forward to it. But I was in Austin in June. It was like 100 and something degrees. I'm guessing it won't be quite that hot. I am hoping it won't be quite that hot.
Should be manageable in late September. We should be fine.
We should be. All right. I'm trusting you, Captain America. All right. So Captain America and the Maestro Messaging, aka Dave Singer, and James McManamey.
Well done.
Nice.
Awesome. Thank you guys for the time. And I love doing these follow-ups. Yeah. And I can't wait to be able to talk about this 6 to 8 months down the line and see where things are, because it's come a long ways from the last conversation we had. So I can just imagine how far it's going to come the next time we have this time to sit down. So thanks again. Thanks to everybody checking it out. Thanks for all the good questions, and really enjoyed those. And I will see you tomorrow for the Watching Privacy AI and Data Privacy Survey Reveal. That'll be fun. 1 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. Until then, have a great rest of the day.